Thank you, Yima, for being here with us today with the Digital Hustle Tribe and sharing all of your knowledge. I'm so excited to have you here. I've known you and kind of stalked you online for a while. So I'm glad that we can get to chat in this crazy year, crazy time. Why don't you tell me a little bit about you, what you do, and what you're passionate about?
Yes. Okay. Well, hi. I'm so happy that we finally got to do this and kind of puts a nice cherry on top of this absolutely insane year. Yeah. So, a little bit about me and what I do. So, I have been working in public relations and communications going on 10 years now. I started as an intern with a radio station in town in digital media and marketing and just getting my education. Went to Ohio State for strategic communications. And it's always been something that's piqued my interest because I think that communication is something that we all need to be good at. From whether we're communicating with friends and family to a C level executive or something. We all need to have great communication skills, and the way that people communicate and why they say the things that they say or why they connect with what they connect with has always been interesting to me. And for the past couple of years, I have been freelancing and doing contract work after years of having corporate as well as agency experience. So that's been a pretty wild ride. And it's been good. 2020 definitely has definitely forced me to kind of look at the way that I communicate, how intentional I've been about my communication, and that kind of parlayed into me creating a blog slash website called yiemajohn.com, which launched in August. So that has been just all facets of me, really. And what I'm really passionate about is helping people in ways that I know how to. I've always been really, really passionate about teaching people and just assisting in any way that I really can and helping other people grow. So if I can do that with communications and public relations, awesome. If I can do that by showcasing how I try and live intentionally, even better. So yeah, that's about it.
All right, awesome. And so you mentioned intention a lot. And so, how does intention fit into a small business owner's communication and I guess how they're running their business? Because communication is everything, right?
Yes, yes. And so here's the thing that I've realized with my freelance work, as well as just observing how people conduct their business. No one goes into business for themselves because they love doing a million things. They go into business because they love or they have an interest in that one service that they're providing, that product that they're selling. That's why they're doing it. But when they make that leap, that transition, you kind of realize, even if you know other entrepreneurs, you don't really know until you're there that you have to wear multiple hats and you have to kind of pick and choose how you're going to spend the money and create a budget that isn't going to tank you, essentially. Um, so, with that being said, for a small business to be intentional with their communication can translate into generating more sales, reaching out to the right customer, as well as just saving their own money and their sanity, really. I think that because there's so many other things that are important and A1 priority for a business owner, it's very easy to say, oh, well, I'm just going to throw this on my Facebook. I'm just going to throw this on my LinkedIn. I'm just going to go sign up for a TikTok because that's what's trending right now. That's what's important right now. But they don't really know how to make it work for them. And what that translates into is just this very hodgepodgey, really non cohesive type of presence on social media. And it's confusing to their potential audience.
Yeah, no, that's so true. And I was smiling as you said, going on to TikTok because it's a new thing. There's that new what, Clubhouse, I think
Yes.
it's called. And I'm like, should I? Because I don't need something else. I don't need to wear another hat, another social media channel. But I'm like, should I? Should I not? Should I ask for an invite or should I just wait till somebody organically just happens to invite me.
Yeah.
So it's yeah, it's so much so that it's like it's just not intentional, like you said. It's just like let me jump into this now because it's a new thing, but there is no strategy behind it.
Yeah, there is definitely appeal to being on the leading edge
Mhm.
with any type of trend, you know. If you would have told me that TikTok would become as important and as talked about as it is now, because funny story, I did a TikTok last year with my dog, and it was just some random thing because I was just playing around on it. I didn't know a single person who was on TikTok. Fast forward 6 months in March, and now everybody's talking about it.
Mhm.
So it's tempting. The temptation is definitely there. But really, it comes back to, do you really want to add one more thing that you need to be on? And does it make sense for your business or
Yeah.
for you, for
Mhm.
that matter, to be on it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that and when thinking about myself, juggling all these things, right? Jumping into it, I think it helps having an end goal. Like, let me jump into it for a week. What do I have to hit? What do I want to do with it to make a decision if it's going to work for my business or not? But just jumping in without any goals just seems kind of random.
It is. And when you talk about it or when you're bouncing off ideas with a friend, yeah, you could totally see why it's just like, why am I doing this again? But when you're in that mode, when you're in that world and you're doing your research, you just get inundated with all these things that you're supposed to do, all these places that you need to be on. And you have these major personalities who tell these fledgling business owners, oh, if you're not on this app, if you're not on that app, you're trash. And that's not true. That's not true at all. If anything, if you can't be a steward of what you do have, the audience that you do have, if you can't really serve them, then we have a problem.
Yeah.
It's not being on as many things as humanly possible. It's how are you handling the things that you are currently on?
I love that because, yeah, if you go on Pinterest or just Google search like marketing tips,
Yeah.
communications tips, right? It's like you're inundated with all like the top 100 things that you should be doing with your business. And after being in business for a couple years now, it's like you look at that list, but you have to figure out which one is going to fit you, fit your audience, fit your time, and if it's going to actually give you a spark of passion for your business, or is it just going to be another task? Which my desk is filled with papers of lists and lists of things I have to do. So, yeah, I love that you mentioned that. Yeah, don't definitely a nice thing to run through a list of like that, but probably not necessarily. Not all of those are necessary for a business.
Yeah. I think that everybody kind of needs that reassurance that
Yeah.
they aren't lame or behind the times if they aren't doing things. They just need to be more strategic about the things that they do.
Hmm.
Yeah.
More intentional. All right. So, how can we be more intentional? I mean, we touched a little bit on this, but how can we be more intentional with our PR? And could you kind of run through what PR is for those that don't really understand what it is? Because a lot of people are like, oh, that's like social media, right? Or that's
Mhm.
being featured. So, what exactly is PR, and how can we as business owners be more intentional with it?
Yes. So the long short of it is public relations is building up the affinity that the public has with you and your brand. That's like the shortest explanation I can have for it. And it's funny that you mentioned how people assume that social media and PR are the same thing. It's totally not. And when I first started with school, in 2008 on this, the big thing was, oh, yeah, advertising is the same thing as public relations. And they're totally not. So, public relations is the publicity and the attention that your brand earns.
Mhm.
Whereas advertising and sometimes social media, that can be bought
Mhm.
essentially.
Yeah.
Um, so, when it comes to small business, what you're really going to want to try and do to help be intentional with your public relations is one, figure out who you're trying to talk to and speak to that person. speak directly to the heart of that person. So if you are a mom in Ohio, why wouldn't you talk about those things that are kind of important to you in your life, in your world, in your bubble? Those things are the things that really resonate. Um, and free tip for everybody out there, the biggest shift that I have seen in the past few years has been this movement away from what is curated and perfect and like very oh, what's the word? I guess perfect is kind of the word. These curated feeds and these perfect captions and stuff. We've shifted away from that, and we want narrative.
Mhm.
We want to hear the nitty gritty of it. We want to see real. We want to see authenticity. I love that. As long as people are comfortable with it, as long as clients are comfortable with that to an extent, you know? So when it comes to how you're using that in your publicity and your PR strategy, you want to share why you're in your business. You want to share what is so important about the service that you do, because chances are there's probably a million people who do the same things that you do.
Mhm.
What makes you different? How is your approach different? And the only thing that really separates what you do from what Joe Schmo from down the street does is your audience. If
Mhm.
you can tap into who that audience is, and really figure out her interests. What time? I say her a lot. That's my retail brain coming through. But really, them. What time are they on? What time are they interacting with you? And when they interact with you, are you engaging back with them? Are you providing a value add? And that's a big, big question. I feel like that's a huge compass that we all need to follow when we're trying to create a strategy there.
Mhm. So, what outlets could let's say, okay, so there's a couple of questions. When I
Yeah.
talk to small business owners about PR, they've said, well, I don't have really a story. I just sell X, Y, and Z. There's nothing special about it. So, I'm going to stick with Facebook or social media. And then others are like, well, that's just getting featured, right? Featured on magazines and stuff. Are those myths? Are those both myths? And if so, what's the flip side?
Absolutely, those are myths that need to be debunked. Those are really stories that we tell ourselves. I know I've definitely said that about myself. I think our culture really kind of trains us to not really talk about
Mm.
how we are awesome
Mhm.
because it's seen as conceited. So when you get into business for yourself, you have to be your own biggest cheerleader, right? And you have to be able to talk it up. Now, for the customer who says, there's nothing special about what I do, I just sell sponges, right?
Mhm.
Okay, I can see why you don't feel special. But what made you want to sell sponges? What about it? You
Mhm.
know, there's a story there. It's not that you woke up one day and you were just like, I'm just going to do this. No, like there is a why behind
Mhm.
everything that we do. So whether it's, I'm really passionate about cleaning, and I think that a clean home is a happy home.
Mhm.
Bam, that's your story right there.
Yeah.
That's something that is your core message. You can build from there, and you can go into so many offshoots, and
Mhm.
you can teach people why. And then it's like, okay, now I have my core message. And also I sell these sponges that are
Mhm.
awesome. That's how you make that conversion there.
Mhm.
Now, with the other customer who's thinking PR is just about getting featured, no, there are tons of ways that you can get featured. I mean, there's product placement. There's, I know in my past, I've done celebrity swag bags where you get product into these like gift show bags and stuff, and you pay for that kind of advertising, and you get like no payoff because they don't talk about it. What's so great about this product,
Mhm.
features are great, but having people really know what your brand is, what they do, really seeing the heart of your brand or your product,
Mhm.
that's what gets people to say, all right, I feel comfortable giving my money to XYZ company here.
Mhm.
So that again is what's going to help out with your public relations, and that should be your central focus.
Mhm. Okay, so many good points in there. All right. So I was recently listening to another podcast, and it's I don't know if it's just minority women, or if you guys are not watching the video, we are both women of color. And I don't know if it's that culture or just women in general, but it's like we can't really talk about all of our accomplishments, all of that we've been
Mhm.
through. And I was recently speaking of, not recently, it's been a year now, but I was speaking with a friend. Feels like recent. And I was like, yeah, I can't, why would I be featured anywhere? I don't really have, like I said, I don't really have a story. I'm a website designer. I help women, that kind of stuff. And she's like, you're a Latina business owner in tech, and you've been working in corporate. You've done all these things. So she starts listing them off, and I'm like, oh, I am all those things. So if you don't think that there is a story, it sometimes takes a friend to just be like, no, let me check off. I don't have enough fingers to check off all of the things that you've accomplished. And then to your point of it's not just about being featured. Yeah, you can get featured, and if you have a website, make sure they have a backlink. But just a side note, but I like how you mentioned, product placement and all of these different ways of that PR really helps your business move forward. And going back to that intentionality, it really, what is your product? Who are you trying to reach? And how can we get your story out there and in front of them? So
Yeah.
I would rewind and listen to what you just said all over again.
Get the pens out. That's
Yeah,
like major key. That's the key point
yeah.
here.
Check the show notes. Um, but so, okay, so let's say as a busy business owner,
Mhm.
we've decided, okay, PR is something that I want to look forward to in 2021.
Mhm.
How do we choose the right person? Because obviously we're wearing all of the hats. We don't have time to handle anything else on our list.
Yeah.
How do we choose that right person that's going to help gain that momentum for us?
Ooh, well, I would say first and foremost, if you have decided that you are going to make that investment, you got to make sure that that investment is working for you and really being an advocate for your brand, not just another paycheck or not just another client to add to the list. You also have to be really realistic about your expectations. Something that I know I faced a lot of during freelancing or when I was first getting started is and this goes back to the whole misconception that PR is just social media presence, it's just advertising. It takes time. You
Mhm.
have to build the relationships with the media. You have to be able to find the right people to
Mhm.
present a brand to. So, whether that is pitching to different brands, building up those databases, doing the research, finding the bloggers who would even want to cover your stuff, there is a lot of foundational laying that you have to do before you start landing in Forbes, in Inc., in the New York Times. Like, yeah, you have those unicorns who do
Mhm.
because someone really loves it. Some celebrity found this product in some obscure store in Texas, and
Yeah,
now it's all over the place and it's
yeah.
booming. That does happen. However, the 98% of businesses, you're going to have to kind of grind and get in front of those people. And if not your product, if you're not driving that product, then there's a story behind it, right?
Mhm.
So, let's say this single mom of four, she concocted the perfect skincare cream or something like that, and celebrities love it. That is a huge story,
Mhm.
especially in the States. Everybody loves a good Cinderella story.
Yeah.
It's inspirational, it's aspirational, and it's those things that make you feel like, "Oh, wow, I can do anything I want." You
Yeah.
need somebody who's gonna be able to mine for gold within your story.
Mhm.
Because just like what you were saying too, especially if you're working with brands of color, uh, it's really easy to sit there and say, "Oh, well, I'm just a person who has a food truck. Oh, I'm just somebody who opened a bar in this town," not really realizing because we're living it, we
Mhm.
minimize it.
Yeah.
That's us protecting ourselves, right? Because I think that, especially as a person of color, certain experiences, if you really let yourself feel everything, it's kind of shocking, right?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
It's like, oh
Oh
wow,
god, especially now.
I'm like, I can't believe I just did that. Like, wow. Um, but you really need somebody who is going to be that advocate for you, and you need to be able to have those realistic timelines and understand like this is not going to be an overnight thing. Um, like I said in the beginning with my freelance work, I had a lot of people who would give me their wish list, want to be in Forbes, in Inc., in New York Times, but they've never worked with anybody who writes for those publications, or they're just getting out in the market. They're not tested
Mhm.
really, you know? It takes some steps there. So you need to be willing as the business owner to wait for the ROI to come.
Mm,
And then also, you have to make sure that you have the time to connect with your PR person. That is something I think that we don't talk about enough when you're talking about seeking public relations help.
mhm,
I can't do my job effectively if I can't connect with you.
mhm,
Um, I can do whatever it is that I want to do. Will you be happy about it? Are
mhm.
you completely trusting me and my judgment on things, or are you going to want to check what I'm saying, making sure that we're aligned on how you're being presented out to the public? You need to make sure that you are budgeting time to get an effective strategy out there, and then you need to also kind of loosen up the reins and allow that person to work too.
Yeah,
um yeah, I think that's pretty much, those are my big four.
yeah.
So
So how do you get started with the client then? So let's say, and I'm actually considering this, but let's say I've got my planner out. Um, let's say the business owner is ready to. Let's say they have a cleaning company or whatever kind truck food truck business, and they're ready. They think that they're ready for to hop on with a partner for PR.
yeah.
How does that relationship get started? What sort of is it? Kind of like website design where there's research on the front end, or how does everything work?
Yes, I would say if your business is ready to go and you're just like, yeah, we need this to really amp up what we're doing in 2021, I would say take the time to reach out and, sit down with whoever you're interested in. If you've narrowed that down to like one single person, or if there's, let's say, maybe three PR professionals that you want to work with, who knows? Make sure that you have the time to sit down with them and really go over your big goals, right? Um, there should be research done as well. We want to make sure, like, who's the market that we're really targeting, the demographics. What is it in terms of like your end goal? Where are you trying to be come 6 months from now, come 12 months from now, 18 months from now? What is it that you're really wanting, and how feasible is it that we're going to get there, right?
Mhm.
I would say those are probably the two most important parts. And then, of course, negotiating the contract. I would say don't do any PR contract that is less than at least 3 months, 3 to 4 months
Mm.
from the get go. For all of those reasons I was listing off before, you have to make sure that you're laying down the groundwork, that you have a solid database, that you have those contacts in the media, local or national, or that you at least have a game plan and storyline pitches that you can send out to these people too, right? So, like, we're going back to the example of the sponges. Okay, great. Like, what's this person's backstory? How can we leverage it and make it fit as a feel good human interest story? And who's going to be really interested in it? And then identifying those key areas of opportunity for that business too.
Yeah, that's amazing. Uh, so okay, so we to recap, we would want to have at least 3 months, similar to a couple of other, whether it's social media platforms and stuff like
Yeah.
that, a 3 month just to get those analytics in, get those numbers, get those relationships built up.
Mhm.
Um, what things should we watch out for when choosing a PR partner? Is there any like a red flag that we have to like kind of be weary about?
Ooh, I would say if a person is a little too forceful with you, if you've never, especially if you're new to working with a PR person, whether it is a single specialist or an agency, some people will try and put some heat on you, right?
Mm,
And I think that anybody who isn't going to be empathetic to the investment, the time, or just the newness of you, is not somebody that you want to work with. You also don't want to work with anybody who is going to completely shut you out of whatever it is that they're doing. It doesn't feel good to have a dictator in the room.
Yeah.
You don't want a dictator. You don't want a tyrant. You want a partner,
Hmm.
someone who's going to look at your business as their own, someone who's really going to adapt to your brand, who's going to love your brand and what you do.
Hmm.
So be willing to share that excitement. And if they can't get on board with it, if they're not truly about it, if they're not about that life, then they need to keep
Yeah.
it going, because otherwise you're just not gonna, it takes a lot of heart to get the rejection
Yeah.
and bear the brunt of pitching to journalists and everything like that. So you want someone who really loves what it is that you have and what you bring to the table. I would also say that anybody who isn't willing to collaborate with your team, so if you are a small business that does have a person, a team, or a point of contact, you got to make sure that they are strong collaborators as well. That goes back to that tyrant piece. This is a whole operation, a whole ship. So a relationship. And if you're not going and if you're not going to be working together, then what is the point of this relationship? If there isn't going to be trust in what I do as your PR professional, if there isn't going to be a why, if you're not going to trust my expertise and you're going to fight me every step of the way, then it's already a non-starter. So those would be my tips in terms of red flags.
Yeah. I think one thought is that coming out of 2020, a lot, at least from what I've heard, a lot of people are trying to pivot to more positive stories rather
Mhm.
than like, look at this other business that just shut down. So if you do have, if your business is going, or if you, whether it's stable or if you're just looking for some PR, I think just having those great hero arcs, I think that's what they're called, the hero arc stories that I
Yes,
found on
yes,
Facebook, those hero stories, I think that they really appeal a lot more. And like you were saying before, it's not that curated, look how awesome I am and I'm always awesome. It's like
hmm,
sometimes I get a little grumpy or hangry or whatever it may be for your business, but
yeah.
um, just being real and authentic and finding that partner that helps you develop that authenticity as well.
Absolutely. I think that with public relations and applying it to a small business, you want to make sure that it still sounds true to you. Um, Nobody likes, so this is a great example that I think applies here, right? If you are a parent or a pet parent, no one likes to hear a bad report on their kid or their dog. Why? Because it's a bad reflection of you.
Mhm.
You internalize that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. So when it comes to your brand and your messaging, you need to make sure that there aren't bad reports on you, right?
Mhm.
You need to make sure that what you're saying is true to you and true to your story. Like, you know
Mhm.
what I mean? So true
Yeah.
to you, as in it feels natural. It doesn't feel like this big ol' it doesn't feel like a myth,
Mhm.
if anything, or too far of a departure from you. And then true to the brand, you want everything to be factual because everybody's a journalist now, and all it takes is just one, one cell phone, one picture, one screenshots. As I like to say, screenshots are forever. So all it
Yeah.
takes is that to take a whole business down, no
Mhm.
matter what you've done.
Yeah.
So I think that those are just some things to keep in mind when you're moving forward
Mhm.
for 2021 in your business. Just make sure that your story is true to you and that it's a good report and a great reflection on you.
Mhm. I remember there's a show I was binging a long time ago with Kerry Washington? Is
Are you talking about Scandal?
maybe. Is that I'm assuming PR is nothing like that. But I was like, "Oh, this reminds me of, like, there's something going on and Yima's gonna go in and fix it."
Oh my gosh, I wish I would I wish I could have Olivia Pope's wardrobe. I would
Yes.
love that
Mhm.
without all of the messiness and the
Yeah,
drama.
without the drama.
I can go without. But I mean, to an extent, like if you watch it, there are some nuggets of truth in there.
Really?
You know? There are. I mean, it's really hard to say that with a Shonda Rhimes show, but it's true. There are little nuggets of truth in there. And one of those being telling your PR person the truth. Um,
Mhm.
it's not so
Oh,
much a
yeah.
spin machine. You tell them the truth. I need to know. I need to know, so that we can prevent a crisis.
Mhm.
I will say that Scandal is probably a better embellishment on crisis management
Yeah.
than the everyday PR.
Yeah, yeah.
So, I mean, if you're an adrenaline junkie, then yeah, crisis PR, crisis management, perfect industry for adrenaline junkies. Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah, speaking of shows and the value that they bring to, I guess, value, I don't know, to business know-how, I was rewatching Queen of the South, which is totally
Ooh.
not the business that you should get into, but but there were points in there where she was, she's like this up and I guess you could call her a business owner, up and coming business owner, and she starts delegating, and she puts trust in her employees, and then manages a bunch of stuff, and I'm like, this is like a really good business show, but not the business that you should probably be in. So,
Absolutely. So I love that show. I watched the novella.
oh yeah, yeah,
Yes, I watched the original novella that it was based off of, and I haven't seen any of the recent episodes, but I know it's on Netflix, so
yep,
that's gonna be added to the list now.
yep,
But it's true. Like you can't, as goofy as it sounds, you can't you can't limit where you get inspiration from.
hmm
You can, and where you learn your lessons from.
yeah,
And you're 100% right. We are not encouraging anybody to get into that level of industry or that type of business.
mhm.
Uh, we don't like it. but, but the show
Yeah,
has some great nuggets. It
mhm,
definitely does.
yeah. All right. Well, is there anything else that you would like to leave us with? In terms of PR and intentional PR.
Yes, in terms of PR going into 2021, I think that, and this goes for me too. I'm in this boat. I think that 2020 shook us to our core on a monthly basis. Uh,
Yeah.
Personally, financially, mentally, we were pushed to the edge. So I think that it is completely normal if you are ending the year and you're kind of shell shocked a little bit, right?
Mhm,
But the thing to remember is that there are lessons here and there are things to apply into 2021.
mhm,
And if you are afraid of it, if you're going to avoid it, then you're just going to keep running into yourself. Um, and as my dad, he has great insights. We were talking about it. And I was just kind of reflecting on this year. And he was like, you know what? 2020 just kind of amplified who we already were.
mhm. That's true.
So,
For
you
better
know,
or worse.
for
Oh,
better or worse. So if you were a really positive person, and a person of faith or anything like that, you probably leaned heavily into that. And
mhm,
you wanted to shine your light to help other people. If your business was shaky in the beginning of 2020, if you were just kind of hanging on by a thread,
mhm,
well, it exposed you.
mhm.
I know that's what it was for me, you know, and it exposed how vulnerable we can be. So,
Mhm.
by being more intentional with our actions, with our strategy, with our public relations, we can prevent ourselves from these various traps of just day to day business, as well as whatever is going on in the world as
Yeah.
well.
Mhm.
So, that is my nugget.
All right. Let's try to switch it up from 2020 to do you have a fun fact that you would like to share with us?
Ooh, okay. So, a
Oh,
fun fact about
you got
me.
really excited.
I did get really excited about that. So, like, and this is kind of silly. So, I recently learned how to hand knit. Like that's what I have been trying to like use this time to
Mhm,
like really hone any type of skills that I've always
mhm,
wanted to do. I've been cooking more. I actually just got the Joy of Cooking book.
Yeah.
I'm gonna try, and if you've seen it, if anybody has seen it, you know it's like it is literally the Bible of cooking.
Yeah. Mhm.
I'm trying to cook my way through the Joy of Cooking.
That's just like a whole website blog. Blog.
That could be a whole series in and of itself. So I've been kind of like plotting and planning. Um, so learning a lot of like domestic stuff, really. So I'm going to be cooking through the Joy of Cooking for next year. I've been hand knitting and trying to like build my own like really cool things. I haven't been able to get like the thick yarn yet
Oh, is it
because
sold
you know
out?
sold out. Distribution from China is like
Yeah.
limiting stock and stuff, and not to mention that stuff is expensive.
Mhm.
But I've been really finding joy in that, as well as just trying to use household items to create things that are non-toxic. I've been really intentional about the things I'm putting in my body,
Mhm.
what's going on in my house, and just trying to be more sensitive of it.
Yeah.
So I guess that's my fun fact. I
Yeah, that's no, that's a cool. Yeah, I didn't realize during this year. Well, I've been relearning fractions with my kids, but other than that, just how much of a break I get when I try to bake bread. I'm not the best baker, but when I'm baking bread and I'm still trying to figure out a duplicate for replacing our sliced bread intake at our house, by just baking, it's like this really weird switch for my brain from development and always being on a screen to
Mhm.
baking something. So that's been really interesting. But I still also found out, thankfully, this year, it confirmed that I do not want to be a stay-at-home mom or a teacher. Well, at least a teacher to my own children.
Ah, oh my
Um,
gosh. No, shout out to the teachers out there
oh
because
yeah, it's or the parents are gonna go crazy with teaching because it was
the
fun.
parents who didn't go crazy, the stay-at-home mamas, like I
Mhm.
salute to all of you because this year was a test to
Yes.
everybody's sanity. But to your point, um, I feel like when I do those things, even though like when you're a business owner, you have to be more analytical in
Yeah.
addition to whatever skill you already have and service you're providing.
Mhm.
So I feel like cooking and creating just kind of was this release for me,
Yeah.
and it
Mhm.
allowed me to kind of balance my masculine energy and my feminine energy, and it just it was
Yeah.
like an exhale. I loved it.
I totally feel that.
Yeah.
All right. So where can everybody find you? Do you have anything coming up? Yeah. Where can we find out more about you?
Oh my gosh. Okay. So if you are interested in all these things that I talk about, then you can head over to yiemajohn.com. That is YIEMAJOHN.com. And I just share insights and all my things, all these facets about intentional living there. I also am going to be hosting a little get together called Plan to Win, how we can use intentionality and gear ourselves towards intention settings rather than resolutions for the new year. And that's actually going to be happening on January 11th. I'm not sure.
Ooh, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely happy then.
Oh, okay. Awesome.
If not, I will make
I
it
was
come
just,
out by then.
woo, okay, good. Whew, coming in clutch. Thank you. But yeah, I'll be hosting a little virtual get together. If you want to get your planners out and you just need someone to spitball ideas off of and how you can get crystal clear about the intentions for 2021,
Mhm.
that's what we're going to be doing. So,
Great.
yeah.
Do you have any social media handles that you would like to us to follow?
Yes, you can follow me at on Instagram and Facebook. I am at Yiema John, YIEMAJOHN. I'm very easy to find, especially if you're in the Columbus area. And Instagram is my jam. Facebook, but definitely Instagram.
Yeah.
And one of these
Not
days,
Clubhouse? Not the new app Clubhouse?
girl, let me tell you, I have been sitting there knocking on Clubhouse's door and they just keep not inviting me. I I submitted, I like registered and everything, signed up because I was like, "Ooh, this sounds like really awesome." So I need to like pay somebody to invite me in because I can't. I'm waiting for that text. I've stayed. They have left me on red, and I don't like it.
Yeah.
So we're gonna.
I'll
We're,
if I get invited, I'll let you in. We'll do a little swap. No, that's
thank you. I think we need to lift each other up that way.
yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for being here and giving us all of your knowledge on PR and what you've been doing and just how we can really move forward in 2021 to help our businesses grow. Um, I will have all the links in the show notes. So thank you again for joining, and I'll catch everybody in the next episode.
See you guys.